Okay. Um, so kind of while I'm talking, you can read over this. This is in your email. I sent this yesterday. If you already read it, great. I'm going to go over a couple of things from it just so I know that you get the point. Um, so let me kind of break down how every day is going to work first. And I kind of just tested it out with my period 6 class, and it seemed to work pretty well. So we're always going to be doing something like this. So the first thing that you do is you go to on campus, you respond to the attendance question just with here or hello or something like that. Then you come here, you come to YouTube, you come to my channel, and there will be something for you, and you'll know ahead of time. If I don't give you any information, just assume it's a stream, kind of like this. If I do give you information, it'll be like a video, kind of like Flip Classroom, like we did a couple chapters ago. All right. Um, so log into on campus, you respond to the questions, come here. We will do the lesson or the concept or an explanation or something. And after that's all over, I will go to Teams. I will start a meeting, and anyone with questions can just kind of come in, and I can explain it a little bit better one on one, or like 1-on-3 or whatever. Okay. So that's kind of how a day will work on campus, YouTube, and then Teams. Those are the things that we're going to be using, and that's what every day is going to look like. All right. So I kind of want to just outline the guidelines, the things that I'm going to expect. And again, this was sent to you and your parents. It's in your email. If you haven't read it, just read it. Um, those first two things I kind of just did. When we're on this stream, I will open it up for questions a little bit. They'll probably be a little bit broader questions. What I don't want though is I don't get this or this is stupid. I want questions in this live chat to be very specific and concise. And they have to be questions. So if you're just going to reply like hello, just for my sake, don't do that because it helps me kind of manage these questions a little bit better. When I have to like scroll up and down, it's a little bit annoying. So just keep these questions concise and make sure they're actual questions. I will not answer if I don't know your name. So I know Betcher said up above he's J3T or whatever, and he's always on, so I know who he is. But if you have some crazy name as like your profile or like YouTube name or whatever, that's fine. When you ask your question, I need your name up front. I don't think I'm going to have a problem with it in this class. But that's kind of what I'm expecting. I'm hoping people can hear me. Okay, cool. All right. So Henry, something must be going on then on your computer. All right. Next, kind of depending on the class, um, things will look somewhat different from class to class. But those three things on campus, YouTube, and Teams, we're going to be using pretty much every day. Um, I'm going to try and make these last 45 minutes or under. Today might go a little bit over just because I have to explain this as well. And we have a little bit of unfinished business to do with tests and all that. So today might go over that, but on most days they shouldn't be over 45 minutes. Think class, right? So I'll lecture for a little bit, and then I'll let you guys kind of get to work and ask questions when you need them. There will be homework, and I will grade it every day. Okay. So first, you have to show up. That is worth some amount of points in some section. So today it's 1 point on your exam. All right. Other days it might be a quiz. Other days it might be a project. It'll be some significant amount of points in some significant section. So if you don't show up, that's not a good thing. This is mandatory. We're still in school. All right. Homework will look a little bit different, and I'll explain kind of what that looks like a little bit later. If it's IXL, it's going to look the exact same thing. You just do the IXL. If it's a worksheet, kind of like it is tonight, uh, I'll expect you to do it in some way, shape, or form and submit it to on campus. So what a lot of my seniors right now are doing, they're writing the question down on paper, they're taking a picture of it, and they're submitting it to on campus. That makes it a whole lot easier for me to grade, and it's just an expectation. It doesn't get like lost in my email or anything. It's just there. Yeah. Other than that, you're going to be required to be present. It might be tempting to do the attendance question and then just kind of go off. I'm not going to explain the homework until the very end. So like you should be here, just out of like you're a student here and your parents are paying for this. So like you should be here. But there's also like things I'm going to explaining during this that'll help you on the homework. Okay. During class, just don't be in bed. Like, be in a place where you can actually do work and get stuff done. If you have music going on in the background, that's fine. It shouldn't be like blasted all the way up. I don't want you to just watch this. I want you to actually listen and be engaged in this. Okay, this isn't gonna take like hours on end. You're not sitting in a classroom. You should be in a more comfortable spot, but I still need you to pay attention. Um, Tests will be different and retakes will be different. Okay, so right now we have a test scheduled for like Thursday or Friday. That'll probably be moved back a couple of days until I figure it out. But here's what I'm thinking for tests. Instead of just like a sit down test where you turn it in, it'll probably be like explain how to do these 3 or 4 different types of questions, and you'll video yourself doing that and submit it to on campus or to me in some way, shape, or form. Uh, Obviously, there's a lot that goes along with that, but it'll be your work, your words, your explanation. Retakes, there's probably 1 or 2 people that might want to retake that last test. If you do, it might kind of look the same way. I haven't really hammered out the details on retakes yet, but I am still thinking about that, and I'm open for ideas. If you guys have any suggestions, just let me know. Um, After this stream, there will be like, well, I'll go to Teams. I'll open up a meeting. If you're in that meeting, I would rather there be several people in the meeting, like 2 or 3, not just one. If you are the only person in the meeting, you need to make sure you're in like an open area. Okay, that's for both you and me. Um, Keep in mind that this is not an extended spring break. Like, this is school. Your parents are still paying for this. It's still a big deal. Uh, and it's going to require some effort. Okay. But it also requires a lot of communication. Okay. That's like the most important thing for the next couple weeks is communication. So if you don't understand something right away, you need to come and, like, we need to go over it and make you understand it. If you get behind in class, I can kind of pull you aside and we can go over it. And I can see that you don't understand it. It's a little bit harder for me to see that you don't understand it in this situation. Okay, so if you don't understand something, you need to be upfront about it and ask questions. Okay, and that'll be kind of like the team things later. Um, and that's about it. Okay, are there any questions over this? Okay, another thing. This stream is about 10 seconds off. So the time it takes for me to say something and then you to actually hear it, it's about 8 to 10 seconds. So if it seems like I'm going really slow, it's because I am, because I'm giving you time to actually ask questions or clarify. Okay. Since there are no questions about this, though, um, one, this is in your email, so you should read it. If you haven't, you need to. But that's kind of my expectations for the class. All right. Um, Besides that, we need to start reviewing. So we've gone over, I think, all the content that we need to for this test. And right now, I just want to review a little bit about what was actually on that. Right. So I have a list up here. This is period 6's of work. Here are all the things we covered, and here are all the things that I'm going to expect you to know and be able to do. All right. So the first thing that we started with is our systems of 2x2 equations. You need to be able to solve them in some way. I don't really care which one, so long as you're able to do one of these three things in blue. Okay, so you need to be able to use substitution, you need to be able to use graphing, or you need to be able to use elimination. I don't really care which one. I'm assuming you can do all three, and you should be able to do all three, but for the sake of time and grading, I just want you to be able to do one. Besides that, you also need to be able to solve systems of 2x2 equations using matrices on your calculator. Okay, so that's when you go into second matrix, edit a matrix, RREF, and then recall that matrix. So that's the first thing. The second things are systems of 3x3 equations. You need to be able to do both elimination. That's the long way by hand where you're actually physically dealing with the equations. And you need to be able to solve them using matrices, kind of like up here. Okay. Again, that's where you edit a matrix, you do RREF, and then you recall that matrix. Okay, so though these two, that's solving systems. We need to be able to solve systems. Besides that, we need to be able to also deal with matrices. Okay, so we need to be able to know what element corresponds to what other element, or the coordinates of an element. We also need to be able to take dimensions of a matrix. So for example, in white down here, I have this matrix. This matrix has 3 rows, and it has 3 columns. So it is a 3-row by 3-column matrix. Okay, simple. We just need to be able to do that. We also need to be able to add and subtract matrices, multiply matrices by scalars, and then multiply matrices together. Okay, and I'll go over an example of that here in a second. After that, we did determinants. So we need to be able to find determinants of 2x2 and 3x3 matrices. So 2x2 is very easy. Just take the diagonals, multiply the diagonals together, and then subtract the 2 diagonals from each other. So the determinant of a 2x2 matrix, just AD minus BC. Okay. Again, this is stuff we did, so I'm going by this pretty quickly. If you have any questions about it, please let me know. 3x3 determinants are a little bit different. That's when you repeat the first 2 columns. And then take the diagonals. Okay, and again, I'll try and go over an example or so here in a minute. But this is kind of everything we've done. Besides all this, we've also done Cramer's rule. And this, for the most part, is Cramer's rule. All right, so with all of this here, I want to do one example problem, and then I'll get you guys started on the homework. All right, so actually, not this one. So this is number 16 in a worksheet that is in uh, the topic that we're on, so systems of equations and matrices. I want to solve this real quick using Cramer's rule. All right, so the first thing we do is we set up the coefficient matrix. That is just the coefficients of A, B, and C. And we need to take the determinant of this matrix. Again, in order to do that, we repeat the first two columns. And then multiply the diagonals together. Okay, so our determinant here, so long as I did all that math right, is negative 170. Okay, are there any questions up until this point? Okay, so this value, that's our denominator for A, B, and C. And our numerator is the determinant of a different matrix. And that matrix is our coefficient matrix. But we're replacing this 40 should be positive. Negative times a negative is a positive. So our numerator matrix is just the coefficient matrix, except we're replacing our A column with our answer column. All right, so it'll look like 1, 10, negative 16. Yes. Yes, that should be negative 250. Okay. So this would be how you set up Cramer's rule. So you need to take the determinant of each of these numerators, and then that number over negative 250, that'd be your answer for A, B, and C. Okay? I'm not going to expect you to do this by hand. So each of these numerators, I'm not going to expect you to do that by hand. But you can plug it into a calculator, second matrix, edit a 3x3 matrix, and then take the determinant of that matrix. Okay? And then you get your answer. Okay, so that's setting up Cramer's rule. Are there any questions over that? So this was the most recent thing that we went over, um, and we can review this for another day or two. But that's going to be the most major problem: solving a system of equations using Cramer's rule. All right. Now, we also need to be able to use elimination. Uh, yes, you would do that division. So you would get some number up here. It'd be that number divided by negative 250, whatever that number is. Okay, so you need to be able to use Cramer's rule. You need to be able to use elimination, and then you need to be able to do operations with matrices. So matrix addition, scalar multiplication, and matrix multiplication. Okay. I want to quickly do a matrix multiplication one because I feel like that's probably the trickiest. So if there's no questions about Cramer's rule, I'm going to move on to that. Say I have this matrix and I want to multiply it by this matrix, right? as a reminder, the first thing you do is you get the dimensions of each. So this left-hand one is 2 rows by 3 columns. And this right-hand one is 3 rows by 2 columns. In order for this multiplication to work, these two middle numbers have to be the same. And because they are, our new dimensions is this. Okay, so our new matrix is going to be a 2 by 2 matrix. Okay, after that, you kind of take each element at a time. So this first element is 1, 1. That's the first row and first column. So we have to multiply the first row by the first column. So that's 3 times 5 plus 1 times 4 plus 0 times 3. And that number is your first element. This second element, that is the first row and the second column. So it's the first row, so 3 times 1 plus 1 times 6 plus 0 times 0. And then we do the same thing for the second row. So second row, first column, second row times first column. So 4 times 5 plus 7 times 4 plus 5 times 3. And then second row, second column. Okay. And then whatever those numbers are, those would be the elements of this matrix. Okay. So those are the two things that I just went over, probably the two hardest things in this chapter. All right, Cramer's rule and then matrix multiplication. Are there any questions about either of those two? Okay. Now, for your homework, I want you to go to On Campus. Go to our class, go to Topics, go to Systems of Equations and Matrices, go to Solving 2 by 2 and 3 by 3 Systems. And I want you to do 23, 24, and 25. Okay, so I want you to do those, but I want you to do them in a certain way. I want at least one Cramer's rule and at least one elimination. Okay, and the other one you can do whatever you want. Okay, but that's your homework. And what I want you to do is either do it in a notebook, take a picture of it, and then submit it to On Campus, or print it out, do the same thing, take a picture, submit it to On Campus. Or if you want to, you can do it in OneNote and then somehow also submit it. I think if you do it in OneNote or as a PDF, you'd have to save that PDF and then submit it. Whatever works for you, Okay, and I realize this is a little bit different, but that's kind of how I want this to work. Okay, so it's 23, 24, and 25. Okay, if there are no questions, I'm going to move to Teams, open up a meeting, and I would like everyone to at least get in the meeting so they know how it works. Yes, you can screenshot it so long as you're able to save it as a PDF in some way and submit it in some way. Okay. If it doesn't work, you need to email me. All right. But ideally, I don't want any of these submissions to be via email. I want it in on campus. So we need to, in some way, shape, or form, make that work. Yes. Okay. So if there are no questions over any of this, I'm going to end this and then I'm going to go to Teams and I'd like you guys to try and get on. Okay. So I will see you there.